We are live.
Okay, thank you, Mike at LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December 1st, 2020 Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Our first public hearing is canceled this evening. That is 32 Star Island Associates LLC. That will be heard at a future date. So we'll move on next to scheduled public hearings. Sorry?
Chair, hang on a second. That's not the first one for
That
tonight.
was the last one.
We have two canceled public hearings. 32 Star Island, which was originally on for
I apologize.
7:30.
Yep.
And the second one is the Blair Wallace and Jessica Delaney.
Thank you. I apologize. I was reading
No
too
problem.
quickly there. Yes, I apologize. Thank you, Nancy Lynn and Terry. So we have two. Again, the second is Blair Wallace and Jessica Delaney. So those both will be heard at a future date. Okay, now we will move on to our first public hearing this evening. The applicants are Marcello Rubinski and Gabrielle Grimstein. And the lot size and location is 31,430 square feet at 54 Bucks Path, map of Spring Hollow at Northwest, Section 2, map number 6282, East Hampton, tax map number 300-118-1-24.15. The description is to allow an approximately 1,250 square foot pool deck and 450 square foot pool patio to remain within rear yard setbacks. The relief sought, variances of 5 feet and 3 feet are required from Section 255-11-10 rear yard setbacks for the decking and patio to remain 15 feet and 17 feet respectively from the rear yard lot line where 20 feet is required and any other relief necessary. This is in an A residence zone. Flood zone is X. Secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do have an affidavit stating that the mailings were done on November 18th and the posting was done also on November 18th. There was an issue today. I believe Member Brenneman, when he went out to the site, noticed that the posting was not posted. So I have contacted the applicant and have been provided with photographs showing the posting prior to today's date. And also I've received a photo that's in the record now showing that it has been reposted and it has been posted all this afternoon. So
Okay.
we do have a proper notice to be able to go forward.
Yeah, thank you. It was probably that wind, that Sunday wind, or that was some wind we had. I'm okay with this. Board members, everyone good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Board?
What was
Yes,
they sent you a picture, so what was the date of that?
Yes, I'm good.
I'm sorry, the date of the picture, the photograph was not dated.
Oh, okay.
But today's, it shows that it was for the December 1st meeting tonight. So it was the proper posting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Nancy Lynn. So this is in Board Member Brenneman's district. Tim, do you have a field report?
I do. I have a quick one, and Tyler's going to help me here.
Okay, great.
And let me first say that, we had quite a storm on Sunday. So
Sunday.
Monday? Whatever
Monday.
it was, Monday.
Oh, was it Monday? Yeah.
So I called Nancy Lynn and happy that we're able to work this out because there was no evidence of anything being there.
Mhm.
So let's see, Tyler, if we can go to the first shot, which would be the shot of the home. There we go. So I'm standing in front of the property now, just looking at a very nice home. And board members, I'm looking at a survey dated, I believe this one, the latest one we have is March 9th, 2020. So, and it was received on April 11th, 2020. I think that's the one that I'm looking at. So, and this is the view from the front of the house and the impacted area, which is the swimming pool, and then also the patio in the back is sort of around to the right side of this home. So next one, Tyler. So now I'm just heading toward to the right, following the walkway around the side of the home. I took this photo to show both the fence line, which runs up against the back of the home, and it's on the survey, and then also over to show you where the neighboring house is. Next photo. So now I've walked back through into the back where the pool and patio is and snapped a picture of the pool. I'm standing basically right after I've walked through the gate here and just took the snap. And you can see the area in question is along the right side of this, which would be the back of the property. And you can see the vegetation along there. And I've got a couple other photos. And I do have to say, I spent all my time looking at the pool walk and decking here, and I did not capture, I don't think adequately, the tile patio, which is my mistake. Next one, please, Tyler. So now I'm just looking straight back, and again, this is where the variance request is coming from, and really. You know, I think if you look, there's sort of a green area sort of to the left through the trees. And I think that might be a tennis court or something, but it is way back. There's literally nothing directly behind this house, property rather. And you can also see the deer fencing right there behind the decking. And then my last photo, I went over to the corner. Tyler, if you can go to the next one. And so now I'm right at the corner of the along the deer fence, and I just took a shot going down the deer fence line here, which shows where the trees are, the vegetation in the back of the pool area. And as I say, I failed to capture the tile patio. I think I was so flustered by not finding the posting that I quickly ended my photo inventory. So my apologies on that front. Tyler probably has a photo of it somewhere though.
Yeah, we have even that right there. He does.
Yeah.
The aerial. Thanks, Tim. Any questions, board members, on Tim's field report? No? Okay. Do we have the agent or the applicant with us?
Yes, I mean, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. Well, hi, good evening, members of the board. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Gabrielle Greenstein, and my husband and myself are the owners of 54 Bags Path. Well, first of all, I hope everybody's doing well. I know these are difficult times, and I appreciate that you're giving us the time to do this. I want to tell you briefly a little bit of history.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I haven't sworn you in.
We haven't sworn him.
I apologize. We know your names because you're the applicants, but
Yes.
if you're not attorneys, I have to swear you in. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Roy, because we're on record here. So if you can just both raise your right hand and answer, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Roy. Continue, please.
Okay, so the story is that we bought this house back in 2004, and at that time we noticed that the pool deck was in very poor conditions. I'm sorry if I'm reading, but I had a long day at the office. We're both physicians, and I have been seeing patients until 5 minutes ago, so I decided to write it.
No problem.
So we bought this house back in 2004, and at that time we noticed that the pool deck was in very poor conditions. It had splinters, it was missing pieces of wood, and it was pretty unsafe. It was so narrow, the back part of it, that we had several accidents, including one visit my father had, that he tripped and fell, on the grass and on the back part of the pool, and many other people that came to work to our house as well. So as this became a liability and safety concern, we decided later to redo the pool deck. What basically we did was a modest alteration of the original wood deck structure to make it safer. We do understand that unintentionally we have exceeded the setback of the property line, like you said, by 5 feet from the pool deck to the natural preserve and 3 feet from one edge of the patio into the setback of our property line. What happens is, I'm sure Mr. Brennan, when he went, he noticed that the patio where the stone is irregular in shape. So it's not that all the patio is 3 feet more than what it has to be. It's just one edge of it. And so the changes of our pool deck and patio have not really affected our neighbors, and we're within the allowed distance to their properties. I'm talking about the neighbors, not the natural preserve. We use natural and organic materials to redo our decks, respecting the environment where the house is. It is constructed with wood, it's permeable, it has plants and life underneath it, and we do admire the natural preserve located at the back of our property. During these years, we have invested in our property, trying to make it a better place for us and our community. We believe that the pool deck that we have now does not affect the privacy and the properties of our neighbors. It does respect and does not jeopardize the natural preserve that we admire and enjoy so much. And most importantly, and this is the main reason why we made these changes, is to make it a safer place for our family and everybody that comes to our house. And again, thank you very much for your time. And I want to say, that we're both hardworking people. We have worked all these years trying to improve the house. But the first thing we did was this deck, and this was a long time ago, because we were really concerned with our kids were very young at that time. They grew up in that house over all these years since 2004. And we're happy with how we came up. And I hope this does not become a problem for the town of East Hampton. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for your service to the community as well as physicians. Board members, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, and that would be, would you be willing to covenant the tree plantings, the cedar trees that you have screening behind the decking today? So that
What do you mean by that, Mr. Brennan?
Well, you're asking for a variance because you've built your decking and your patio too close to the rear line. The concern that this board would have is that if we grant a variance, that variance stays with this property forever. And even though there's nothing behind you today, there could be at some time in the future, and that could be an impact. So the question would be, you have screening at the rear of your property today. Would you be willing to condition, to guarantee that you will continue to have that screening in place and maintain it in return for the grant of a variance?
Yes, of course. Of course, we definitely will. I promise you.
If I may, Chairman, what a covenant restriction is actually a document that you file with the county clerk's office that goes with the deed of the property to state that it goes. So if it will impose that condition on you as well as any future purchaser of the property. So
Yes,
that it, okay. All right. Just so you know what that is. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, we will.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And thank you, Nancy Lynn. Any board, and I appreciate you asking that, Tim. I wanted to get into the same thing, but you have. So board members, any other questions from the applicant?
No,
No?
they're here for planning.
Let's hear from planning next, if you please. Tyler?
Good evening, Board. Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department.
Good evening, Tyler. I'll swear you in right away for the evening, Tyler, if you please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Tyler. Go ahead.
So I'm covering this application tonight for Mike. He was unexpectedly unable to make it tonight. But it's a fairly simple application, so it shouldn't be too hard. The pool that is associated with the variance that are in front of the board was initially developed in 1984. The survey associated with that building permit depicted a pool and pool decking that met the standard 20-foot setbacks. A certificate of occupancy was then later issued in 1985, which showed the pool patio being 19.6 feet from the rear yard lot line, which is within the 6-inch grace distance that the building department allows. And so it did technically meet setbacks and was legal at that time. The pool deck appeared to have been expanded sometime between 2007 and 2010, according to aerial images. And it was also noticed that during review of the application, that the property appeared to be overcleared in regards to the residential clearing restrictions, and was largely uncleared during the 2004 aerial images. As the property is now overcleared, the applicants have agreed to revegetate as part of the application, and a revegetation plan should be included in the conditions of approval if the board approves, so they can move forward with that as well, to legalize or bring the clearing back down to the legal allowable limits.
I'm sorry, Tyler, did you say they'll bring it back into conformity, the clearing?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And just to be clear, Tyler, again, you said that the applicants have agreed with this.
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Tyler, I'd like to ask if the vegetation that was referred to by Board Member Brenneman is adequate. If it's included in a covenant, do you feel that what's there now is an adequate coverage and protection for the neighbor, or should be any addition to it?
Yeah. I mean, as far as neighbors are concerned, they don't really have many neighbors. So let me bring up the actual GIS here for you. This is the subject property, obviously. They actually have 2 reserved areas in between their lot and the next neighboring lot over here. So you can see how far away that tennis court up there that Tim was talking about was. So there's, I think it's probably adequate, but I think everything in between is going to be more than adequate screening if that's a concern of the boards. These are essentially 2 reserved areas that will likely never be touched. So I think if screening is a concern, I think that's probably covered already, but it's certainly not a bad idea to have some sort of a evergreen screening on the edge of the property either.
Great. Thank you, Tyler. Board members, any other questions? No?
Nope.
Okay. Do we have, Mike, do we have anyone out in the public there online waiting?
Yes, we do, Chair. I can unmute the first caller right now.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Hi. I'm sorry. I'm waiting for the next hearing. That's
Okay.
I'm not calling for a public comment
All right,
or anything. I'm the next the 650 thing.
For Adam Rosen, the Rosen hearing.
Yeah, it was not. It's saying that I'm waiting on the meeting host for the Zoom. I have the
Yes,
Zoom
you
link,
are.
so I
Okay.
just called just to
Okay.
be safe.
Okay, fine. Thanks. If you could mute that call, Mike,
Yep,
please.
it's muted.
Okay. Anyone else on the line, Mike?
No, there are no other callers, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board members, unless there's any other questions or comments, Tim, would you like to make a motion to close us out here, please?
Sure. So in the matter of Marcelo Rubinsky and Gabrielle Grimstein at 54 Bucks Path, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-118-1-24.15, I make a motion to close the public hearing and to, what am I doing?
Keep the record open.
I'm going to leave the public record open until, what is it, 10 days?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks after the record posts to the town website.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Tyler, and thank you to the applicants for participating. Okay, we will move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
You too. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we will move on next to the next public hearing. The applicant is Adam Rosen, R-O-S-E-N. Lot size and location, 61,029 square feet at 24 Ellie Brook Road.
Mayor?
Yes.
You have to wait a moment. We're not quite in the time slot yet.
Oh, I thank you, Nancy Lynn.
We just have 1 minute, so maybe you can tell our many listeners how we will be structuring this differently next year, starting in January, where All of the hearings will be noticed for 6:30 so that we will be able to just take them as they come.
Exactly. Well, thanks, Nancy Lynn. You could just continue on if you would like, if you
Certainly.
please.
Where we will be noticing all of our hearings starting in January, starting at 6:30. They will be on an agenda in a certain order. However, we're going to ask all applicants to be ready to begin at 6:30 should there be a cancellation or postponement of a hearing, so that we don't end up with time periods that we cannot proceed. So that is a procedure that we're going to be adopting starting with our first hearings in January.
Thank you, Nancy Lynn, and thanks for your work on that as well, and to the planning department. It makes a lot of sense. As we all know, sometimes there will be a canceled application, and sometimes there's actually been two, even as this evening. And there's a long lapse of time, and sometimes we are not able to fill that up. And this just makes more sense. So thanks again, Nancy Lynn, for your work on this and LTV. Okay, now we are past 6:50, I believe.
Yep. Yes, we are.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on. I'll read in the next application.
Yeah,
The
Mr.
applicant-
Chairman, I think I did something to my video. All I see is us now and not a shared screen. Well, let's see what happens when
But
someone,
nothing's
No,
being
that's
shared
right.
at the
will
moment.
that go back to it?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have a shared
Okay.
screen yet.
All right.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So the applicant here again is Adam Rosen. Lot size and location is 61,029 square feet at 24 Elwife Brook Road, East Hampton, tax map number 300-73-1-20.1. And the description here is to allow an existing swimming pool patio to remain within side yard lot line setbacks. The relief sought, one variance of 20 feet from 255-11-10 of the town code, is required to allow the existing swimming pool patio to remain 10 feet from the side yard lot line where a 30-foot setback is required, and any other relief necessary. This is in an A residence zone. The flood zone is X, the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
I have an affidavit that the mailing was done on November 19th. And the posting was done on November 19th, which would mean that the paperwork appears that everything is in order.
Okay, thank you. And once again, this is in Board Member Brenneman's East Hampton district. Tim, if you would, with your field report, please.
Sure. So I visited the property this morning, and again, because of the tremendous windstorm, we had a little bit of an issue, but you can see where the posting was when I arrived. And Tyler, if you show the next photo. This was my attempt to hang a very wet piece of cardboard back onto the post, but clearly the applicant had this posted prior to the rain and windstorm, and it was still evident there. So I did the best I could, but my guess is it did not last long, but more than satisfies our requirement, I believe. So next photo. I started to walk down the driveway, and board members, I'm looking at the survey, which I believe the last date here is May 31st, 2019 on the survey. And I took the shot of this because there's proposed revegetation on both sides of this driveway, which would presumably be more sort of ground covering type plantings, because as it exists today, it is certainly covered with leaf vegetation throughout the property. So, and then next photo, Tyler. So a quick shot of the front of the house and the pool and patio that are in question. Really, it's just a patio. In question is to the right, which would be, I believe, to the southwest of our survey. So next photo, Tyler. So now I've just walked through the gate, and I've taken a photograph of the pool. I'm facing northwest at this point toward the back of the property. You can get a sense for the terrain, which essentially this whole entire pool area was sort of sunken into the natural terrain because it's elevated on the two sides here. And the impacted area, the variance request is for the patio, which on this photograph would be to the right side. So to the right of this pool would be the area in question. Next photo. So now I've just turned toward that line of arborvitae. You can see where the patio ends. There is a short retaining wall, and then the line of arborvitae. Immediately behind that arborvitae is deer fencing. Next photo. So now I've walked back behind that area. I'm actually standing, if you look in the survey, I'm standing basically in the proposed revegetation area back there. And now I'm just looking back along the arborvitae line. Next photo. Now I've left that area and basically taken a photograph of where I just was. Again, you can see that the property starts to slope up toward the back of the property. And the revegetation area back there would be just sort of on the other side of the basketball hoop. I will note that I was able to dunk it on this hoop. I just want you to be aware.
Right.
Okay, next photograph. So now I've just turned and rotated, and you can see on the survey the deck with trellis, and so that's a quick shot of that. You can also see some of the stonework back there, again relating to the terrain of the property back behind the pool area. Next photo. Okay, so now I've walked back out toward the front, really just trying to get any photograph I could whatsoever of the neighboring property, because literally I could not get that through the arborvitae beside the pool. So now I've walked through the gate back out toward the front of the property and just taken a shot, and that's the house on the other side of that vegetation, which is, as you can see, separated by a deer fence and then an awful lot of vegetation before you get to the house. So that was the best I could do to show you the house next door that would be the most impacted by this variance request. I think that's the last photograph, isn't it, Tyler? Yes, so now we're just looking at the aerial.
So Tim, a quick question. So to your last point about the neighboring house, does that arborvitae is as well between the pool deck and the neighboring house, but you just snuck around to take that picture?
Yeah, I came toward the road to take the picture, just to try to get any photograph I could of the house. But yeah, the arborvitae is very dense right there.
Mm-hmm. And it appears that it was the retaining wall looks like it's retaining the planting and the root bed of the arborvitae, correct?
Yes, and as I mentioned, that entire pool decking is sort of sunken into the natural terrain.
Right. Okay, thanks, Tim. Board members, any other questions for Tim? Any questions?
Just looking at that stone decking, is that, Tim, did you think that was set on a slab, or was it set into like gravel or in the landscape?
That's a good question, Roy.
Set on sand.
Yeah, I'd be willing to accept set on sand as well. It did not feel permanent.
Yeah, and
Okay.
well, thanks, and we can have the applicant put that on the record too when it's their turn. Thanks, Roy. I want to ask the same thing myself. Any other questions, board members?
I don't know. I was just looking at the fencing. I mean, and Tim was calling it deer fencing. Is that the pool fencing also? Is that enclosed, the pool? Within fencing? it looks like there's a deer fencing going down the, I guess, easterly property line that kind of just ends.
I did not go all the way back, Terry, but
That'll be on the roadside, it looks like. Okay, all right.
well, on the roadside, there is the continuation of the house, and there is actually a wood fence and gate that I had to go through to access the pool. But then back along the side of the property, I think all I saw was deer fencing. That's all I captured.
Tim, I'm wondering, what was your sense standing on this slate patio in question? The distance to the nearest neighbor from that arborvitae hedge, you said it was significant. The pool is set down. What was your feeling about it? I can see on the survey where the house is, but.
I mean, I don't know what the distance was exactly. I can just tell you it was very difficult to get a shot through the vegetation. It's pretty substantial through there. I do not see that as an issue in this. I think the patio itself being non-permanent might be a question for us to address with the applicant, but in terms of the impact on the neighbor, I don't believe that that is an issue here.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Any other questions, board members? No? Okay, so let's go to the applicant then next. Do we have the applicant here, or the agent for the applicant?
We have the agent. He needs to be sworn in.
Yep. Okay. Hello? Did I see Jason logging around?
That's it, Jason. Yep.
Is he on now? Is he?
Yep, Jason.
Yes, I'm on the Zoom call here.
Okay, you'll need to be sworn in by the chairman.
Unless you're an attorney. Could you raise your right hand? And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so the patio, just to address your question, it is indeed set on sand, bluestone. I just wanted to point out that there's the deer fence that's behind the arborvitae line that the board member Brenneman pointed out. There's also a wildlife corridor, then the neighbor's deer fence, and then a significant wooded area in between there. So, as you mentioned, I don't think as far as the character of the neighborhood or, a burden to the neighbors, I don't think that that would be a problem. Looking through the determination by Tyler, I just, one of the reasons they didn't want to move it to the north or south was to disturb the native evergreen vegetation there and also that significant slope. So I think that's one of the reasons it was originally put there. It was also, I don't think that the person who put it in was, checked anything. Not that ignorance of the law matters, but they didn't intentionally do that. It just seemed the logical fit for where to place it.
We keep referring to deer fence, but is that acting as pool enclosure?
No, there's pool, there's 4-foot walls and pool compliant gates on the sides of the house, but I think that they have the pool code fencing affixed to the deer fencing, which has the smaller squares to meet New York State pool code.
Mm-hmm.
So it's affixed to the deer fencing, and just along the back. On the other sides, there's a gate to the pool area. So I think that's if you're asking about the pool code compliance.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I'm sorry, you said you think on the eastern side, I don't know, Tyler, if you could point to that the fencing on the easterly side. So that has a double fence, it has pool code as well as the deer?
Yeah, that has the pool code fencing affixed to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, Jason?
No, I just, if it matters, it's been there for 7 years with, no issues. And, obviously I don't think it's an impact on the neighborhood. As far as the
Well, I
rebate.
don't- Go ahead.
No, please.
I don't know how we can just say that there's no impact on the neighborhood when it's such a substantial variance. It even pierces the standard of the principal building lot setback. How can we say that this doesn't impact the neighborhood when we're dealing with a major precedent issue here?
Right. I think I was just referring to the
I have a problem with that.
Jason, do we know when this went in? And we're curious, the applicant should certainly try to explain why a permit was never taken out. And to add on to that, was a permit ever taken out for the deck with the trellis in the back? Do you know the history and who put this stuff up and how it happened?
As far as I know from speaking with the owners, it was put in 2013. They had an out-of-town contractor, which also contributed to the re-veg area, which they instead of using the driveway, they just cut through a wooded area that had to be revegetated to provide an egress for them while they were doing work. But from what I understand, obviously, they're fully aware that it's not an excuse for it, but they had an out-of-town contractor who told them that it was set on sand, it didn't have to meet setbacks, which was they located there, and that, I don't know, they sold them a bill of goods. Apparently it was put in, it was there for 7 years, and then when they went to do an addition, this is why this came up. But that's as far as I know about the history of it, of how it went in and how it came to be put in without the person who installed it taking note of the setbacks.
Now, remind
Right,
me,
but
That's
go
a
ahead,
concern.
so that addition, it's on the survey here. Does that have anything to do with this application right now?
Other than, no, they wanted to bring everything into compliance because they wanted to get a CO, so I guess this came up not meeting setbacks during this process when they were applying.
Right. So that's why this was put in for a permit for that or something. Okay.
Well, the technical analysis memo said there was a CO in 2012. So that sounds like just before your clients bought the house. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And yes, and we can, and
then
I believe
they added-
everything was conforming then, but we can go over that with the planning department as well when they speak, but go ahead.
Okay,
Jerry.
but I'm a little confused on, you mentioned an addition. That addition is not yet done then. Is that right?
I'm not sure if it's complete.
is there a permit on it?
Yeah, there is a permit on that.
Okay.
So
They have-
why did they give a permit? Why did they give a building permit when you needed this variance?
I'm not sure. I mean, they have a contractor that pulled the building permit. I know I was met with Mark Abramson from Natural Resources there regarding the re-veg, and he looked at some areas along the driveway that just needed to have irrigation pulled out because there's established native white pines there and stuff like that. So I met with him there. This was already in progress. So the addition. So I don't know how the building permit was issued, but.
So Mark Abrams pointed out the setbacks to the slate patio to you?
No. This, the client came to us about the slate patio because apparently they had some kind of issue with their closing out their building permit.
Oh, okay. It sounds like very confusing that maybe you don't know. the details, but anyway, we're wondering if there was a building permit granted. That's what we're trying to get to.
There's a building permit was granted in 2019, building permit 68462 to build a 652 square foot first floor addition containing no sleeping
Oh, I
area.
see it. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon. That was in the TAM property. Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah, that's part of the
The existing conditions?
Yeah.
addition to the CAM.
Sorry about that. Okay, Jason, let's go on to the planning, unless the board members have any more questions of you. We could circle back to you, but board members, shall we go into the planning department
Sure.
for a few minutes?
Yes.
Okay, Tyler, if you would please on this as well. Thank you,
Good
Tyler.
evening, board. Tyler Borsak for the planning department again. As this application is for a variance for this the slate patio from the side yard lot line setback. The pool patio was constructed sometime between 2013 and 2016. The swimming pool and original patio was constructed as part of a building permit issued in 1985 and received an up-to-date CO in 2012. The applicants will need to show how the existing patio meets variance standards. The patio requires a 2/3 variance from the required 30-foot double accessory setback. This could cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood by setting a precedent which allows these structures to be constructed or remain within setbacks where conforming locations exist. The benefit of the patio could potentially be achieved through adding additional patio space on the north or south side of the swimming pool where sufficient space exists. The variances are certainly substantial, even violating what would be the standard 15-foot side yard lot line setback for other accessory structures, ignoring the double setback for pools. The variance was also self-created, constructed after the applicants purchased the property. The applicant should address the variance standards, and the board should determine if the applicant's reasoning is sufficient to grant that variance. The overclearing of the property was sort of mentioned already. The board should probably condition the approval on the Natural Resources Department approving that plan prior to a building permit, and then obviously it being completed prior to a CO being issued. And the evergreen screening on the east side of the property was already mentioned. So I don't think we need to discuss that any further. But yeah, as far as building permits are concerned, that all that information is in the existing conditions memo.
Yes.
And there was a building permit issued in 2019, which noted that the pool patio increased in size and needed to be cut back, or variances needed to be received. That was in August of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Board members, any questions for Tyler?
Tyler, just clarify for me, the revegetation is being offered because as Jason, I think his name was, mentioned that the contractor that had done some of the work at the house kind of went right through whatever was there?
Yeah, the property is actually over-cleared at this point.
Yeah, okay.
So they're proposing to bring it down to the allowable limits.
They're coming into conformity too.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Board members, any other questions for Tyler?
My question, Tyler, would be, one of the options provided was to go north. It looks to me like to go north, it would require digging and putting in retaining wall to the back of this. Is it the planning department's view that that would be a more desirable outcome than what is currently in place today?
Well, it's just a dimensional setback variance, so it's not something we generally take an opinion on. But if you look at the setup now, they have a retaining wall, so you'd be swapping one retaining wall for another ultimately. And so that would be, I guess, a question for the board, is if they're comfortable with that amount of work being done. But it is a fairly large variance, which is why I went to the point of pointing out how it doesn't seem to meet the variance standards, because it is a very large variance in this case.
And to be clear, the retaining wall that's there around the slate patio is not in question. It's not in violation. The violation is the flat patio. So patio could be simply pulled back, especially if it's in sand.
Mm-hmm. Just to be clear, once again, to Jason or to Tyler, Tyler, if you please first. The proposed revegetation has nothing to do with this variance application. That has to do with like a natural resources when they got the permit and he worked with Mark Abram. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. It's not a requirement of this application. They'd already, I believe, were working on it. But since it was listed on the survey, I figured we should include it as a condition,
right?
Just to double up on and make sure it gets done.
Right. Okay, I just want to be clear on that, that no additional re-veg has been offered on this application. Okay, thank you, Tyler. Jason, a quick final comment from you?
Yeah, just with what Tyler said,
Yeah, I think we have a caller.
Oh, I was gonna, yeah, okay. I was gonna go to the caller next after just to circle back after we spoke.
Okay, yeah, just that usually the applicant
Yeah,
gets elected.
yeah, you're right. Well, thank you. Let's do that. Thanks, Nancy Lynn. Let's stick with protocol here. My apologies. Let's, Mike from LTV, can you see if that's on it for this hearing, that caller?
Yes, I will. I'll unmute that caller right now. Hello, caller. You're live with the zoning board. Hello, caller. You're live with the zoning board. Are you there? Chair, there is a caller. The line is open if they were to speak. I'm not hearing anything. If you want to proceed, it's...
Yeah. Okay, is that the only one you have on hold? Oh, there we go. Protocol here. My apologies. Let's, Mike from LTV, can you open?
Excuse me, caller, on the phone. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, if you could please mute your television or computer in the background, please.
Yep, will do. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and caller also, it looks like you've called in twice for some reason. The both of your lines are open.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm going to mute one of them.
Line is me. Correct, that's correct.
You're still there?
Yep.
Okay, proceed. Chair, you can proceed.
Okay, if you could introduce yourself, give us your name and address, and as well, if you're not an attorney, I will have to swear you in, okay? So go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm a non-attorney. My name is... Hello?
Go ahead.
Can you hear? Yes, my name is Mark Powell. I own the property that's adjacent at 22 Alewife Brook Road.
And how do you spell your last name, Mark?
It's a P as in Peter, O as in Oscar, W as in whiskey, E as in Echo, L as in Lima, L as in Lima.
Okay, so you own that?
M-A-R-C.
Okay, I will swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, continue, please. Go ahead.
Hello, caller. Are you still there?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
I am here, yes.
The chair has asked you to go ahead and begin.
Yes, yes, very good. So, yes, I am. As I was saying, I am the neighbor at 22 Alewife Brook Road on the other side of the property line where the variance is requested. I just wanted to make the comment that I think I'm not sure since when, but the last few years we have had some significant noise issues coming from the property on that side, and I'm assuming in part due to the proximity of the patio. We've never formally filed a complaint, but have written letters that I've dropped in the mailbox of the neighbor on a couple occasions to politely make them aware that there was noise originating from that side of the property. So when I received your notice, and I thank you for diligently looking into this and for letting us know about this request, I was a little bit concerned that we were potentially going to approve, right, a situation which from our vantage point, right, has not been optimal.
Okay, well, thank you for your comment and for participating. We appreciate that. Board members, any questions to this caller?
No.
No.
I would just like to ask the caller, you said that there were some noise issues, significant noise issues. Is this something on a very regular basis? Was it a one-time occasion?
No, it's pretty regular basis during the summer, at least when people are present at the home. So there tends to be music, right? There tends on the outside. There tends to be voices. I mean, it's not the voices that are bothering, right? It's more the music that is. I believe there looks like there is some sort of outdoor speaker system on the patio, and that music is carrying at least into our property and into the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I will add, right, I do not know if that's a fact or not, but I have wondered at times if the property was not let to people on a short-term basis, which I think might be actually exacerbating this noise issue.
Right.
If it happens to be true.
Yes, yes. Well, again, thank you for your participation. We appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, anyone else on the line?
No, Jared, no more callers.
Okay, thanks. Jason, a final comment? If we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, sure. Where was I? Okay, yeah, no, as I was saying earlier, we looked at the other areas if the patio needed to be moved, as it mentioned in the report. I just don't think it's the side up that heavy slope is viable, would require probably a 4-foot or more retaining wall as opposed to the small little railroad tie one, and is also displacing mature native vegetation, which we didn't want to do. To address the caller, I know they've had some issues with that neighbor. I know for a fact they do not rent the house. There is speakers that are affixed to the house, but I believe that's a separate issue. It's not related to that side of the patio. So if that, just to note that. Other than that, I think everything else has been covered. So,
okay. Okay, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, I guess that wraps it up. Tim, do you want to close this out, please, for the public portion?
Sure. In the matter of Adam Rosen, 24 Alwy Brook Road, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-73-1-20.1. I move to close the public hearing and to keep the written record open for 2 weeks after the posting of the transcript on the town website.
Second.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Tyler. Okay, we'll move on next. Let's see, we're doing fine on time here. Yes, we are. We'll do our next and our final public hearing, I believe. Yes.
Was this the 7:10 hearing or 7:30?
I have
7:10?
I have 7:10 for this one, right?
Okay, we're good then.
Right, so we're good to go.
We're okay to go ahead on this.
Yep. So the applicant here is the applicants are Eric and Tanya Huang and Norwood. Lot size and location, 58,028.73 square feet at 38 Harding Road in Montauk. Tax map number 300-68-4-3.1. Description is to construct a 1,600 square foot pervious gravel driveway with retaining wall, dry well, and mulch path within jurisdiction and setbacks of freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 of the East Hampton Town Code, and one variance is required for this application. One variance of 19.6 feet is required from 255-4-30 of the Town Code in order to construct the retaining wall 80.4 feet where a 100-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. This is in an A and B residence zone. The flood zone here is X and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have affidavit that the mailing was done on the 20th day of November, and we have an affidavit that the posting was done on the 20th day of November. So yes, the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you, Council. Okay, this is in Montauk, in Terry and Ed's district. Which one of you all took
Terry
this?
got this one.
Terry does? Okay, thanks, Terry.
Okay, this one has two frontages, one on Tyler Road and one on Harding. The main house is on Harding, but I started here at Tyler Road. It was officially noticed and posted, and I'm not sure if that's on the property line, if going in that direction behind it, or it looks like they had it posted kind of where the real part of Tyler Road ends, and then there's a little part of Tyler Road, which we'll see that ends about maybe 20, 30 feet, maybe a little more up the road. So next. Okay. Yeah, see it? Okay. I walked up that little piece of road. It's about the width of maybe 10 feet, and then Tyler Road ends. And this is at the end of that. You could see the property line marker. And on the survey where it says deer fencing, you can see that fencing is on the neighbor's property right there with that post. And that's the area where it's slated to begin the parking. The applicant has slated to begin the parking area for the application. Next, I'm going to turn to the left. And in the distance there, about in the center of the photo, you can see the applicant's house. And again, there's a border. This is a very beautifully wooded property with a lot of mature trees, oaks, and some birch. And that's kind of the border line between the neighbor's house on the left there where there's more lawn, and directly toward the applicant's house. It's pretty much wooded. Next. I believe that's basically the same shot. I'm still standing, I think, in that location. Just wanted to get a better shot of the house. Next. All right, now I walked in roughly about 15 feet or so, again, to try to get to where the other edge of the parking area is designated on the survey. And now I'm shooting down Tyler Road. And you could see on the horizon there, it drops off. All of this is very graded down toward Old Montauk Highway. So I'm looking from north to south here. And again, you can see the edges of the property line, and I'm standing at what's pretty much the area that'll be roughly where the variance is required, about 80 feet from the wetlands. And now I'm going to do some more turning around. Next. And now I turn again toward the house, just a slightly different vantage point. You can see from this end of the parking area, the northerly end, over to the house. And again, you can see a lot of nice trees in front of the lawn area for the applicant's home itself. Next. And that's just another kind of vantage point of it, again, to get the trees mostly. Next. Now that was a little, I zoomed in, again, you can see trees. That's also to show the neighbor at 44 Harding Road, which is the neighbor right next door on the northerly side from the applicants. Next. And now I'm going to look across. Now I'm looking pretty much directly north. And in the center there, Tyler, I don't know if you could point that little concrete area. My pointing doesn't help. Yeah, that's it. That is the first remaining concrete foundation that's noted on the survey, the closer one. And everything here is heavily graded and drops off severely from the top of Tyler Road there and down into the wetland area. And but on the top of Tyler Road, it seems to get grade down the other direction, more toward the south. Next, if you could zoom in, this is just a fun shot. There's a deer to the left a little. If you zoom in, there were a number of deer that were walking through this area and enjoying themselves at that Yeah, okay, okay. Next. Now again, wanted to show from that area a closer view of the applicant's home. Next. And now it turned and I'm facing the neighbor on the southwesterly side of the applicant's home on Harding Avenue. And now I think I'm going to go around to Harding Avenue. Yeah, this is the other official notice and posting that was on Harding Avenue, so that was also properly posted. And there's this walkway that leads to the house. This property is very steep, as you'll see. And this is actually the top part of the house, which grades all the way down to the area that the parking area is proposed to lead toward. Next. I walked up that ramp a little bit and to get a shot. Now I'm shooting in the direction of Tyler again, in between that large tree there on the right and the first evergreen. In the distance, you can see a hint of the applicant's, not the applicant, of the neighbor's house that is on Tyler that had the deer fencing. So it's a pretty far distance away. Next. Now, I turn to the north. There was a mention in the TAM of a parking area that exists at the home today. And what this is on behind that parking area is these plantings. And again, you could see how steeply graded it is and falls off severely. And in the middle of the photo, next to the plants that were dying out, in the back, you could see another view of the house to the north on Harding Avenue. And next, it's just another shot again to give you a sense of the grading. You can see the trees and then how much lower the other trees are in the distance, again in that direction of the, and this the little corner here where that stone juts out is pretty much the stone masonry wall that shows on the survey. Next. That's a house across the street on the western side, the neighbor to the west of the applicant's home. Next. And this, I believe, is the final shot. This is the current parking area as it's noted on the survey. It is some gravel under there and just some, grassy vegetation that's grown up. And right to the property line there on the left where the telephone pole is, and that's the next door neighbor again at 44 on the left side of that. And I believe that might be it. Is that it, Tyler? Oh, actually, I asked Tyler to add 3 more. Member Johan also visited, and he went right down into the ravine or whatever that is called, into the wetland area itself. So he showed down in that area where the concrete foundations are. There's a marker there. Next, there's some more of the pathing going through that whole wetland area. It looks like there was a lot of vegetation and the water. You can almost seem like a streamy kind of meandering through there. And this is a shot he got of the inside of that concrete foundation that looked like it was a pump house, from what Tyler told me, a pump house at one time in the past, back in Carl Fisher days, where this property and this area of Hither Hills was proposed to possibly become a golf course. And that didn't happen. And that should be it, I think.
Okay, thanks so much, Terry. Very thorough. Board members, any questions? No?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, let's hear from the applicant this evening, or the agent for the applicant.
Hi, good evening. Madeline Van John here representing the applicants.
Good evening, Madeline. Nice to see you. Good evening.
Good evening. Right, so basically this is just an application to add a more functional driveway to this property. As you could see in Board Member Berger's photos, the current parking area is very small and there isn't really any area to expand it because of how steep the terrain slopes. It's a very odd lot in terms of how everything is situated and how how steep it is in certain areas. Basically, the entire rear portion of the lot was part of a separate subdivision, and it was originally, prior to these applicants purchasing the property, it was a separate buildable lot that the planning board had approved for a residence, septic system, everything like that. When these applicants bought the property that contains the house, they merged it with the one in the back because they just liked the scenic aspect of it and the natural aspect, and they never wanted to build anything else back there. So the Tyler Road extension was required as part of that subdivision that created the back lot, and the house that was to be built back there was supposed to take access from there. And the current applicants were actually required to improve Tyler Road as part of that subdivision, which they did sometime last year. And now the idea with this driveway was just to propose it in the area that was going to cause the least amount of disturbance. The applicant's landscape architect chose an area that would require removing the least amount of trees. And it's basically located right at the top of Tyler Road. In order to avoid going through the property any further, they wanted to keep it as close to the edge of the property to minimize, clearing, removal of trees, and minimize the coverage. And then the pathway to access the house is just proposed to be unimproved mulch. And basically, there's no variance required for a driveway. The only reason we need the variance is because it was designed with a retaining wall. And that was done to make sure to contain any possible runoff, anything like that in the driveway. It's all proposed to be self-contained with the retaining wall. And then there's a proposed dry well that's more than 100 feet away from the wetlands to basically eliminate any potential impact. The planning department had suggested an alternative location further into the property. And the issue we had with that was just that we would still have to run the driveway through this location to get to that location because the neighbor's property is in the way there. So just by keeping us as close to the edge of Tyler Road as possible, we're just minimizing disturbance, minimizing coverage, everything like that. And the property is still going to be, it's about less than a quarter of the allowable coverage, everything like that. And there is, as you can see on the survey and in the memo of law submitted, there's a scenic easement covering a large portion of the back of the property. So there really aren't many options for where to put this or even what can be built back there. But the applicant's intention is just to have this a more functional area for parking and to leave the rest of the property in its natural state. I think that's pretty much what I have, but I can answer any questions that anyone has.
I have one, just so that we know that this is not like a phase one of another, future lot line subdivision of the two lots again. Would the applicant be willing to do a large lot easement over this property?
Well, they are already legally merged, but we would be, if there was a condition of an easement saying they cannot be further, and they can't be further divided at this point because of zoning, I think. But yeah, if we would consider that if that was a condition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, how much parking is this area going to cover? How many cars are they attempting to get in the parking areas?
It will hold approximately 4 cars, depending on size, whether it's a truck or a car.
And they'll also continue to use the original parking?
Yeah, the original parking it barely holds 2 small cars. As you can see, it's only partially on the applicant's property. So it doesn't really provide that much use, and it's not an improved surface. It's grass. So they plan to leave that as is in case they wanted to park up there near the top of the house. But it's very small, and doesn't amount to much in terms of having a parking area.
Now, you stated the architect said that this proposal here, this drawing here, would involve the least amount of damage to trees?
Yeah, the landscape architect. That was why they originally chose this location instead of moving it closer to the house. The applicant also likes the natural look, and so didn't really want any more clearing closer to the house.
What is the proposed material? It may be in the technical report and the planning department could answer, but of the retaining wall itself?
It's proposed to be wood. There was a technical plan submitted with the application. Let me see if I can.
Well, Tyler might be able to pull that up for us. We can talk about that if you don't have it right there. I'm sure it would not be treated timber.
Oh, no, definitely not.
And then again, it looks like you're retaining, which we certainly understand the reasoning, and it's nice to see that you propose this dry well also. But it looks like I believe these are 2-foot contours, right? So I think you're going to need some railings on top of that retaining wall as well that meet the code. Oh, here you have this. This might show it here.
Yeah, if the finished grade ends up that we need railings, we'll definitely put those in.
Yeah, because right now you're showing a 90-foot contour where the Tyler Road meets, right at the right-hand side of the survey. You're showing a 90-foot contour, and at the far corner, it's down more than 5 feet. It's down by 85 feet. So it's great that you don't intend to touch the topography. We appreciate that, but just as a note, you need a railing on that, as you know.
Okay, yeah, definitely. We would get that taken care of.
Excuse me.
I have a question about the size of the parking pad. I see that it's going to take 4 cars. I've been out to the site and seen the conditions. And it strikes me that if this pad was somewhat less in size, if it did not extend as far west as it currently does, it would call for a lot less retention and it would fit more naturally into the site. Now, I understand that the applicant is looking for 4 cars of parking, but I'd suggest that they might consider proposing to accept a smaller parking pad. 1,600 feet is pretty significant here. And particularly given, as been pointed out by our chair, the drop that is occurring, in that westerly direction here, bringing that back, taking 1 potential car parking spot away, given the fact that you do have 2 smaller ones still existing off of Harding, seems to me to be a reasonable recommendation to want to make this a little more palatable to us in approving that if we go in that direction. I just think that the size of it, it seems a little bit much for a single residence having to have 6 parking places. I do understand, being on Harding, that there is virtually no parking on the road, certainly no convenient parking. You can park there, but the roads are quite narrow. So it is something I would suggest that we might talk about. And that is, what impact would this have if we were to make it a smaller parking pad?
So thanks, Ed. I'll just jump in for a second, Ed, because I have a scale here because I was curious with the survey. And as Madeline says, it does appear, for your information, it does appear the interior of the retaining walls is about 44 feet. And typically, as you know, 10 feet is a typical parking width. So, and the depth of that from the inside of the retaining wall to the property line looks like exactly 30 feet. And typically cars are given 18 to 20 feet. So the 30 feet, you can understand why the landscape architect wanted the 10 feet to back into the back out there and go. But it definitely is a 4-car parking. And to your point, it definitely is a full 4-car parking there proposed. And Madeline, I guess this is I'm sure a pervious surface you're proposing here?
Yes, it's pervious gravel.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. That's probably in the report.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And we can circle back. Madeline, any other questions before we go to the planning department, board members?
No.
Okay. Let's hear from Tyler next. If you would, Tyler, please. Good evening again.
Yeah, good evening. Tyler Borzak for the planning department. I threw up some quick numbers on there utilizing the scale on my PDF viewer. So you can see the numbers since you were interested in the, so it shows 44 feet wide roughly by 30 feet deep at that deepest point. And obviously, so obviously there's a little bit of extra space over here where they gain access off the road. But just so you're aware of what that looks like.
Yep.
So again, Tyler Borzak for the planning department. The board should look closely at this application and determine if there are more appropriate locations and designs for additional parking on this property. The proposed project is within 100 feet of the freshwater wetlands, which are downhill to the northeast. The planning department sketch attached to the assessment shows a potential location for a similar parking area further west on the property with an approximate 12-foot access to the relocated parking area. This would still require a variance for the retaining wall, but would move the largest portion of the parking outside of NRSP jurisdiction, and the variance would be reduced. The improved parking and driveway area would within jurisdiction of wetlands on that sketch was approximately 1,700 square feet, which is very similar to what is proposed in this application. But a lot of that is again moved further away from the wetlands. The alternative design would move the majority of those improvements further away, and would help to mitigate runoff and sedimentation of the wetland concerns, and would move a large portion of the parking completely outside of jurisdiction. The relocation of the parking area closer to the existing improvements would also help to reduce habitat fragmentation and impacts on wildlife associated with that fragmentation. Alternatively, the applicant may be able to expand the existing parking area on the west side of the property with additional retaining walls in order to move the additional parking for the parcel completely outside of jurisdiction and not require an NRSP or any variances. But there are significant slopes along Harding Road portion of the property, as you saw in the photos, which may be prohibitively more difficult to construct a parking area in. However, that area is outside of NRSP jurisdiction, and as an option, it should be explored at least. And if it's not feasible, it should be explained why it isn't feasible. Both of the alternatives mentioned should be explored to determine if the proposed variances are the minimum necessary and have the lowest impact on the surrounding wetlands practical. The relocation of the parking area elsewhere on the property would reduce the impacts on the surrounding wetlands through increased buffers on the steep slopes, reduced clearing close to the wetlands, and increased setbacks. There are also other potentially feasible methods through alternative locations, which would achieve the same purpose as the proposed parking area is proposed. Excuse me. Additionally, the possible locations for the driveway and parking area would require less substantial variances or no variances at all potentially. The purpose of the parking area is achievable through other methods. The variances are substantial considering alternative locations, and the project could have an adverse impact on the surrounding wetlands. The wetlands within jurisdiction of this project is a depression, which collects runoff from the surrounding area. This wetland is one of the few wetlands within the President's Section area of Montauk, and the only wetland within the immediate vicinity. The entire area has steep slopes which funnel down to the wetlands, collecting runoff and rainwater from the surrounding area. These wetlands can be expected to provide the same benefits as other high-quality wetlands throughout the town, and are especially important to the attenuation of floodwaters prior to recharge into the groundwater table. The wetlands constitute an integral part of the natural environment, and more specifically, the hydraulic system. These wetlands are also an important component for the habitat of a variety of wildlife species. Limiting clearing and development within jurisdiction of these wetlands is especially important, considering the significant slopes, which are even more impacted by runoff and sedimentation than less severe sloping properties. Other than that, I can answer any questions that you might have.
Can you show us your sketch, Tyler?
Sure. So this is essentially just taking this square here and moving it over. Obviously, you could even do like a vertical one, which would this line here is your 150-foot jurisdictional line, which is why so you're moving all of this outside of jurisdiction completely. That was our plan.
Okay.
Alternatively, I don't know if it's possible, but rather than taking access from Tyler Road, I don't know if they can come in further over as well. I don't know if that's feasible. Then I guess that had to be worked out with the highway department, rather than coming in. Essentially the road ends right at the closest point to the wetlands that they possibly could in the right of way. So if they could come in further over, they'd greatly increase their their setbacks. Even if they had something similar, just move down down here, they'd be outside of at least the 100-foot setback. But again, I don't know.
Okay, that would move it back into Tyler Road, into that.
Yeah, so essentially, rather than coming in here, it could maybe come in further over and having something here. This is obviously a very rough sketch. something like that. If you can see that. Something like that, rather than coming in right at Tyler Road, coming in off Tyler Road and then having it over here somewhere, if that makes sense.
Tyler, I was out on the site, and when you stand at the end of Tyler Road at the spot that's proposed by the applicant, everything for the first 15 feet of ownership in the applicant's property is flowing towards Tyler Road and away. At this point, there's no evidence of any water from the Tyler Road area making its way down into the wetlands. It's definitely coming precipitously from the area surrounding it. And my concern would be with your proposal is that we are still going to have to clear a certain area where the parking pad is proposed by the applicant. And then to make our way down to the new area, we'll be removing some additional trees. The mature vegetation, it was pointed out by Member Berger, is impressive here. There are a number of 50-foot or so tall oak trees, white and red. And I was a little concerned when I saw this sketch with the amount of additional clearing that might have to take place to come down into this location. Now, I do understand what it does in helping us to avoid the variance and to keep us from the wetlands. And I'm not crazy about the size of the parking that's proposed by the client. It seems that it's larger than it has to be. But I'm also not convinced that moving it down to your proposal is much of an improvement. It does take us further from the wetlands, but it will take out some vegetation that were in several of Member Berger's photos. You could see were significant, and it is quite a handsome lot in terms of the vegetation that's there. So that is a concern of mine in terms of approving a new location. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I appreciate your perspective on it. But standing there, I felt a little differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't that this is like the end all be all alternative design, just that there are all other alternatives that could be explored. And the board isn't necessarily set in stone to the one proposal. Obviously, it would require roughly the same amount of clearing within jurisdiction, but then additional clearing outside of jurisdiction in order to do the one that's shown on the screen right now. But I understand the concern.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Any other comments, board members, at this point? Okay. Do we have, Mike, do we have anyone from the public on hold here?
No, we do not. There are no callers, Chair.
Callers. Okay. All right. Madeline, a final comment, or board members, if you have any comments, just jump in. But otherwise, Madeline, a final comment?
Yeah, just regarding the alternative locations. I mean, I did speak to that before, so I'll be brief. But I think just expanding the parking area along Harding Road just isn't going to be possible because of the topography there. It would be too much of an effort to try and build out a further retaining wall, and it would probably cause a pretty significant runoff problem to even try and do something like that over there. And yeah, regarding Tyler's alternative location, the landscape architect did consider that in that area and moved on from that idea because of all the extra clearing in that area that it would require. And also you can see the topography in that area is not as steep, but it does go down pretty significantly from the end of Tyler Road down into that area. So there was concerns about containing the runoff in different areas, as if it were to run down from the top of Tyler Road into the parking area, how that would be dealt with. And then just having such a long driveway running along a steep slope just wasn't really what they were trying to do. And then also, once Tyler did that, put it in that location, you end up using more coverage for the driving area that just doesn't seem necessary. We were trying to pretty much, by keeping it at the end of Tyler Road, just minimize the amount of coverage and clearing on the property itself. And if we were to try that alternative, we would still need a retaining wall along the area where the 12-foot driveway path or whatever that would be was going. So we would end up having a lot more disturbance and grading on the property because we would end up needing more retaining walls for basically the entire length of the driveway area. The intention here is just basically to keep it as minimal as possible.
So
Okay.
having said all that, how do you feel about member Johann's suggestion about possibly making it a 3-spot area, parking area?
Yeah, I mean, we could, if that's something that the board is, that a majority of the board is interested in. I think the applicant would be open to some things. A small reduction probably would not, as long as everything works in terms of having room to maneuver the cars. I don't think that would necessarily be a huge problem.
Okay.
I think that having suggested it, it's because standing on the site, that additional 10, 12 feet that would extend out has an impact. I think that you think of it as being far less disturbance of an area if we don't go that additional feet. It starts to drop off and there's quite a bit of other vegetation, a longer wall. A lot of it just didn't seem right to me in terms of the size, and that's why I made that suggestion.
Yeah. And it would reduce the variance too.
Well, if we're talking about pulling it back on the west side, is that what we're talking about?
I'm talking about pulling it back on the west side.
Yeah, west side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. That would not reduce.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't touch it.
Now, if you did bring it back, just as a thought, if the applicant were willing to reduce it a bit, if you did bring it back to 36 feet clear, interior space, that actually, you actually can fit 4 small cars in there, because parking spaces are, as Roy knows, are typically either 9 by 20 or 10 by 18 in a parking lot, so theoretically, thanks, Tyler, that's a good graphic. If you were to pull it back, Madeline, or request, to the interior dimension being 36 feet, you could theoretically get 4, maybe 2 larger and 2 smaller cars in, whatever. It allows 9 foot a car per car.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that seems reasonable.
I have to just say that to me, it's commendable, before we close out, that this applicant has purchased this other property in what would have been a buildable lot where there could be another residence, another sanitary system. So I just have to say it's commendable from my outlook on how they it seems clear from the way the house is too, that they respect, the property and nature, and good for them and good for us,
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Yeah, so I might suggest, Madeline, if you don't mind, even if it's a handwritten depiction, it would be better, I think, for us to contemplate exactly what you would propose as opposed to us sort of making it up.
Sure.
I don't think you want us designing your driveway.
Sure. Good. Yeah. Good point. Good point, Tim.
Yeah.
We can. The record's not going to close. The written record, as you know, Madeline. So you have plenty of time to get that in.
Yeah. Great. Well, yeah, we'll do that.
Any other comments, board members?
I only want to say, Mr. Chair, that backing up what you've said about this piece of property,
Yeah.
It's somewhat unique. It's quite beautifully vegetated. It provides a wonderful environment. Both times I visited, I've run into deer, as Member Berger did. It's really well respected, and it's quite a beautiful piece. So I'm sensitive to the wetland portion of it, and I think that's important. But I also think that the site itself is quite different than almost anything in the area. So backing up what Tyler has said, I think that maintaining the least amount of disturbance on this lot seems very important to me.
Yeah, and I'll just add one final comment as well. The modest mulch path. There's nothing grandiose about this entrance from the parking, and I think that's commendable and fitting, with the character of the whole project and the property. Okay, Terry, you want to close this out then?
Yeah, okay. So for 38 Harding Road, Eric Wang and Tanya Norwood at 38 Harding Road in Montauk, tax map 300-068-04-3.1. Make a motion to close out the public hearing and to leave the written record open for 2 weeks from the time that the transcript of this hearing is posted on the town website for all purposes, and for the agent to give us an update on the proposal discussing the parking area that was just discussed.
Second.
Concur?
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Madeline, Tyler. Okay. We'll move on. Moving down on the agenda, I don't believe we have any administrative applications this evening. We have 2 extensions of time. The first is Michael Ho, and the second is Mansley.
We're actually not going to do Mansley tonight, if you don't mind, Chair. There's a procedural problem that we have on that one going forward. I believe the board in the past declined an extension of time and voided the determination. So there's nothing that is current that you could consider, although we did discuss this. Yeah, we did discuss this in September, but I don't think that fact was before the board at that time. So Kyle and I are doing some research, and we've reached out to the agent, and we'll see the status of that probably at a future meeting, but we're going to take that one off for tonight if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask you, Nancy. I don't recall we that was circulated. I hadn't seen that, or maybe I'd seen one email, but I didn't know if the board had even seen that one. We did receive from Brian Frank the Michael Ho at 26 Bay Inlet Road in Springs, and that's tax map number 300-23-1-23. And I believe this is regarding an extension for a building permit. The house is under construction, and this is in Springs. Roy, do you want to pick up on this one?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I read the Brian Frank's memo. It basically says that the house is under construction and that the limiting fence is in order, and recommending extension of time. Are we making, council, are we making a motion now, or does it have to be written?
It has been written. Kyle has prepared.
Sorry, I did not see it written. Okay, so
you can make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Will do. Then I would make a motion to adopt the extension of time for Michael Ho at 26 Bay Inlet Road, Springs, Suffolk, tax map number 300-23-01-23.
Second.
I concur.
Concur.
And I concur. Okay, thanks, Roy, and thanks, Nancy Lynn. Okay, we'll move along. No possible admins this evening. We are not doing, I don't believe, board, council, we have, as far as determinations.
Yeah, let's go back here. We have a board decision. We have some resolutions at the end.
Oh, that was next. I had that next or after determination. Anyway, go ahead.
There are no board determinations.
There are none, right.
Tonight, yeah.
So we do have, so therefore we have Roseberry Real Estate next, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay. Go ahead, council, if you want to explain this.
Sure. I think that the request before the board has been circulated to all members. This is coming in as an applicant is asking the record on this property did close. It was originally scheduled to be discussed at next week's work session. And the applicant is asking to be able to reopen the record and modify the application so it more closely reflects what the planning department had recommended in the TAM. And if that application requires another hearing, it would need to be renoticed and reheard for the board to then make a determination on that modified application rather than the application that's currently before the board. we don't usually do this, but it seems to be a kind of a way to perhaps be looking at a improved application or more in compliance application at the onset rather than after a determination has been filed.
So council, once then they submit it, then we have to make a determination. Then will we make a determination on whether there's a hearing or not? Or who makes that determination and when?
Well, if it's substantially different, that it would affect a different neighbor. If it's a different, obviously, if it requires new variances, then it would have to be reheard. If it is the same variances are necessary or fewer of the same variances, then we would not need to rehear it. But they can't submit it for us to look at unless you agree to reopen the record, because it can't be considered until this first decision is made.
And we don't typically do this.
Do not typically do this, but kind of weighing in whether or not this is something the board wants to consider when you have an applicant who wants to follow recommendations of the planning board, whether you want to encourage that, or they do run the risk if you have the determination and you deny it, then they have to show the new application is substantially different in order to even bring a new application. So obviously, it's in their best interest to not have a negative determination on the property. But for all of those of you who have been on the board long enough to know that when we go down in Article 78, we often find ourselves in this position after Article 78 has been filed and a court is asking us to consider a amended application or some sort of compromise on their original application. So this is kind of a better alternative than that.
Yeah, except that already had a decision on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is an attempt to keep their foot in the door and keep their place in line, as opposed to having to pull back and completely refile.
Well, yes, they could. Yeah, that their other alternative is to withdraw the application and start all over again. You know, the downside of that is that it's not as fresh in your minds as to what the original application was, and this is a different. You know, what you often will get in those situations. You know, you do get how well do you remember the original, and how different is it than what's currently in front of you. Not that this board doesn't keep that stuff fresh, but depending on when they bring it again. And this is you know, novel, and up to the board whether you would want to go down this route, but obviously they need your permission in order to do that.
I mean, for me, I would say that it sounds reasonable. However, I don't want to go down the road of having a run-on hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I think this board has to be very careful on. All right, John? That's what I think. But
well, yeah, thanks. If I can follow Roy, I wanted to listen to you all.
If we do it here for Roseberry, that it could become habit forming for other applicants.
Yeah. Well, that's what I just wanted to get. My comment, I've thought a lot about this as well, and I agree with all of what you all have said, and Nancy Lynn as well. And I think it's a slippery slope, and this is a bit precedent setting, but as we know, they could, as Nancy Lynn outlined, they could withdraw the application, and then we might end up coming back and hearing this 8 months from now or something like that. And in some ways, it seems like it can streamline it, especially if it's much better than what was previously done. But more importantly, I think it's important that we have the chance for that. It does not just become protocol. This becomes something that the board would be discussing at every turn, and not that people are just given another swing at the bat here. But I think at the end, I think this can really can streamline this. If this board gives directions and we give our decisions on whether or not we are going to allow this for a specific application. I think it can really streamline things and as well keep things fresh in our minds and fresh in the planning department, the planners' minds as well. Go ahead, Terry. Go ahead, Roy.
So I'm concerned about some of the previous applications that we did not allow this, and I'll give you one example, and that'd be Cole, where they withdrew the application because they wanted to make it better, but it took another year or so to get it through the planning department.
Yes.
So that was on that. So allowing these now is kind of unfair to that applicant. So I mean, I think we have to have I'm concerned about having I don't know what's different from that one, but.
Yeah, I know it's a big question, and the question is it going to streamline things and make more efficient for this board and the planning? And yet, at the same point, we don't want to become, the village zoning board is constantly going back and forth. And I think this we definitely do not want that kind of ping pong where they can come back 2 weeks later and 2 weeks later with another one and 2 weeks later with another, So
I think if we're going to make a policy change, we make a policy change and we stick with it. But it should be a one-time thing. It can't go on. It can't be a run-on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to agree with the chair. I think we're going to get a better application, one would assume. They're not going to do this and provide something that isn't better. I agree with Roy. We can't allow this to happen 2 and 3 times.
Yeah.
So, but I think it expedites things for the applicant. From a town perspective, we're going to get a better application. I don't see the harm in permitting this.
So if we do this and they do another application, are we going to get feedback from the planning department?
Yes. When we reopen the record for them to submit new information in, I would expect that the planning department would update their TAM to reflect that, just as they would if an application comes in and then while it's pending before it has a hearing date, if they change and modify their application, planning department normally updates their TAM to reflect the changes.
Right.
So do we establish timelines?
Well, when the planning department is ready and has had the opportunity to respond, then we would look at it as to whether or not it need to be on for a new hearing or not. And obviously we would need to have the planning department determine that by evaluating the new submission.
Right. And I think with the goal, the only benefit of this scenario, and I agree completely, it's a one-shot deal, and we look at every single one of these. But the benefit here again is the timeline where say Tyler is a planner on this. It's fresh in his mind. He gets a revised. It's not going to be a major new application. It's going to be probably some diminishment of something or another, and it's fresh in the planner's mind. Tyler can write a memo, an addendum, or update the TAM, whatever works best and is legal, and it gets noticed and all. And then it's fresh in our minds, and we move forward, as opposed to waiting 8 or 10 months and then starting over again. Go ahead. What's your feeling, Eddie? How do you feel about this?
Is there anything about this application that makes it unique compared to other applications in the past? You mentioned, Vice Chair mentioned Cole. And
yeah.
To go procedurally. Is there anything that justifies this if we allow them to get this continuation? Is there anything here that makes them different than any other applicant? And therefore, are we setting, as you're suggesting, Roy, some sort of precedent or opening a door that others can pass through just as easily?
I don't think that's the case. I don't see that, but.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I don't think that is the case here, though. That I agree, and that's why I think I want to reiterate that the same way we're having this discussion on this, as we should, if anyone ever came back with the same kind of a request, it would go through the same process as this is going through.
I think.
And I don't think that precedent doesn't apply in these types of administrative decisions as they do in a decision with regards to a granting or denying a variance or a special permit. This is more of a procedural, whether the board wants to entertain this procedure to see if this works for the board in streamlining things. And if it seems to not streamline and becomes a more of a burden on the board or a burden on the planning department, certainly you can change the procedure and not allow, not grant any of these requests to reopen in the future. So it's not the same as creating precedent of one determination
Right.
to another.
And to be clear, Ed, there is a difference between Cole and this one. In Cole, the applicant actually withdrew the application after the hearing. This, they have not done that. So I think there is a distinct difference between the two. But,
Right.
you know, again, yeah, and that's just a tactical thing that was done at that time.
Am I correct that based on the letter we received, the request is to immediately submit a revision?
My understanding is that they are ready to submit it as soon as they're given the opportunity. We can't accept anything new because the record is closed. So they can't submit it, but my understanding is that they're ready to submit it.
And if I remember correctly,
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tyler?
Yes. If I remember correctly, at the public hearing, that they essentially said we want to work on it. So it's not as if the board didn't know something new was coming.
Right.
And something similar has happened in the past where the board has allowed things to come in after the fact and then review it and decide if they wanted to do another public hearing or not. So it wouldn't be the first time that something like this happened, but it is.
Right, and I would agree with that.
Right, right.
Yeah, we always
do
have
agree
that,
with that.
we reserve that as a potential stance that we can take, which is to say we can always ask for a public hearing if we determine that the variance requests and so forth are impactful in a different way to the neighborhood and that it's worthy of a full airing.
Exactly. I'll throw in one more thing, two things. One is, Nancy Lynn, thank you for your comment. That's good about administrative procedures and how we can pull back on whenever we want. But to this, it almost comes down to the mistake they made, or is many applicants will say, can you please not close the written record for 2 weeks or 3 weeks? We want to revise a survey and come back to the board. You know, we've seen that dozens and hundreds of times. They did not request that, and they allowed, or the written record went ahead and closed without a resubmission. So anyway, that's just another comment. So it seems like, how are we feeling, board? Do we seem that we
Yeah, I'm okay with
give
it.
this a shot?
I think
okay
I'm okay with this one based on the fact that they seem to be ready to resubmit something in a short time frame. So can we reopen it and give them a deadline
Yes, the board can always do
for
that.
a month or whatever?
You can reopen the record for new submissions, and if no submissions are received by a certain date, then the record would reclose. So it wouldn't just be reopened indefinitely.
Yeah.
It would be giving them a period of time that, that the board is reopening it for a certain amount of time. And if a submission is received, then the record will remain open until the planning department has an opportunity to respond to see whether or not the record needs to remain even open longer for a hearing or public comments or the like.
Well,
So-
they submit theirs,
30
and
days.
whenever it closes after the planning comment.
The board will have to determine when it closes. If they submit something, you'll have to decide when it closes again. But if they don't submit anything within a certain time period, then it can automatically reclose.
Right.
So is 30 days reasonable?
30 days,
Reasonable. Yeah.
I would say certainly. I mean, the whole goal of this is moving and streamlining, and hopefully when it comes back to the planner, they're not reinventing the wheel for their addendum or their update, as well. That's
Because I think this is in my jurisdiction, right, John?
Yes,
Was it?
I believe so.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm trying to flush out a motion. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so I think if we made a motion on 30 days and then 30 days for the planning department to comment, is that reasonable?
I would say that I'd leave it 30 days and then the planning department, I wouldn't give a time limit on that, only because there may be a factor of it having to come back to the board for a decision as to whether or not it needs to be reheard, set for a new hearing.
Right.
And that may not be within that 30 days. So I would set it to reopen it for 30 days. If nothing's received, then close it. If it's received, then for it to stay open until this board determines it's appropriate to close the record again.
Great. That sounds good to
Okay.
me.
All right.
Thanks, Roy. Thanks, Roy. Go ahead.
So therefore, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to reopen the public record for Roseberry Real Estate, East Hampton, EH LLC, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-083-07-03 for 30 days for the receipt of revised documents for this application, and that so that a decision can be made whether or not there's a hearing beyond that. Does that sound right, Council?
I believe so. And I think the only other caveat would be that if nothing is received within those 30 days, then the record will
be closed.
close.
So be it. Yep.
Second.
I'll concur with that.
Ed?
I did. I concur. Yeah.
Okay, I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Roy. Thank
I
you.
want to say, though, I don't view this as anything that we're going to be looking to streamline in the future. This is strictly a
Right.
one-off case.
Right, this is a one-off, everything, right, we've gone over this. Yep, exactly. Thanks, Terry. Okay, okay, moving along. Next, we have the minutes, the draft minutes of November 10th. I've looked at these. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 10th, of the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
A second.
Concur.
I concur.
And I concur. Thanks, Terry.
The 17th,
Okay.
I don't think we're out there yet, last time I looked.
No.
No, I think that's it. I think that's all we have, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay, now we have quite a few resolutions. Nancy Lynn, any of these, are we planning on doing all of these? Can you remind us?
We are planning on doing all but the last one. The first 6 are after hearing resolutions, determinations.
Right.
The 7th one is a modification. That's the McPherson.
Mhm.
And then Hoth, you've already accepted it as written, so that one is
Yep.
done.
Mhm. And Mansley, we're not doing anything with Mansley.
Ansley, we're tabling it probably till next week,
Right.
but we need to table it.
Okay, shall we start with Schwartz and Hain at 44 Cliff Road? And that is, oh geez, I apologize.
We are putting it, we are adding it to, you'll see on the agenda, the location is included now under the title. So you have jurisdiction on that one. That one's in Amagansett.
Right, that's, I apologize. I don't have that right on my screen right now. I'm just pulling it up. Excuse me. But this is Schwartz and the applicants here are Schwartz and Hain at 44 Cliff Road in Amagansett, tax map number 300-173-2-17 and 18. And board members, you will recall, sorry, one second here, I'm just pulling this up. You will recall this is the lot. It's quite a large lot considering the neighborhood there. I believe it was way back when it was 2 lots. And they are proposing the additions to the house, the swimming pool, and the revegetation, the scenic easements in the dune area. We had much discussion on this, and this is kind of fresh in our history. And I have read the determination, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the determination for Schwartz and Hain at 44 Cliff Road in Amagansett as written.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Camila Lippi at 21 Bianco Road in East Hampton. This was in board member Tim Brenneman's. I'll just read this in. This is the applicant Camila, C-A-M-I-L-A, Camila Lippi, tax map number 300-56-1-5. And again, this is at Bianco Road in 21 Bianco Road in East Hampton. And Tim, would you like to take it over from here, please?
Sure. So board members, you'll recall that this is the property where the existing home was to be demolished and retreated back and rebuilt. This application also included a substantial scenic easement. We were unanimous in our approval. I have also read the determination and am in agreement with it. So I'd like to make a motion in the matter of Camila Lippi at Suffolk County tax map 300-56-1-5 to accept the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
And we all concur? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I concur as well. Okay, next we have thank you, Tim. Next we have 133 Girard Drive LLC at 133 Girard Drive in Springs at tax map number 300-41-2-25. This is in board member Delene's Springs district. Roy, if you would.
Sure. Board members, if you remember, this was a house on Springs that essentially this application cleans up this property from existing conditions that existed over time. The only condition that did not exist over time was a proposed shower. So with that, we were all unanimous on our decision, and I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution of 133 Girard Drive Springs, 300 Suffolk tax map number 300-41-2-25 as written.
Second.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Roy. Next, we have Dan and Julie Resnick, and this is at 72 Shore Drive East in Amagansett, tax map number 300-107-1-22. And board members, we certainly remember this. It's very fresh in our memories. And excuse me, the hearing date was September 22nd of 2020. And this is regarding the existing house where the floor elevation is going to be raised up 5.3 feet to, excuse me, to conform to FEMA regulations, whereby a 12-foot above sea level elevation is required. They're putting in a new sanitary system under a road-bearing structures. And to reconstructing a 354 square foot deck on this property. We discussed this at length, and I believe 4 out of the 5 board members approved, and board member Berger dissented.
3 of 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3. Thank you. Yes, right. Ed wasn't on board then for this hearing. Thanks, Terry. So having said that, I'd like to make a motion to approve as written the determination for Dan and Julie Resnick at pardon me, the address 72 Shore Drive East in Napeague, Amagansett, East Hampton, New York.
Second.
Concur.
Okay.
Am I concurring?
You concur to the determine. Yeah. Thanks, Terry. Thank you. Okay, next we have Anne Marie Field at 10 Hunting Road in East Hampton, tax map number 300-118-1-17, and this is in board member Brenneman's East Hampton district. Tim, if you would, please.
Sure. And the board will also remember this. Hunting Road is on the landward side of Springy Banks. This was a modest home that was a modular home that was brought in, and essentially the applicant had maxed out their coverage allowable and was coming back to us looking for a covered front porch and a storage shed in the back. Ultimately, the board was unanimous in its approval, sort of a modest variance request based on the fact that behind the property was a reserve area, and we felt like we could approve this. So I will make a motion in the matter of Ann Field, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-118-1-17 to approve the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, next we have William Wilson at 345 Flamingo Avenue in Montauk, tax map number 300-5-3-16, and this is in Board Member Berger's district, Montauk. Terry, if you would, please.
Yeah, if you recall, this was the applicant that was replacing a back deck on his property in place in kind. However, he was adding 3 steps, the width of the deck across with that reconstruction, and it caused him to need a variance and an NRSP due to wetlands that were on a neighboring neighbor's property. This was also a unanimous approval by the board. So in the matter of William Wilson, 345 Flamingo Avenue, Montauk, tax map 300-5-3-16, make a motion to approve the determination as written.
Second.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Terry. Okay, we have another one for Terry here. This is McPherson at 139 DeForest Road, Montauk, tax map number 300-32-6-3. Terry, if you would, please, on this, McPherson.
Yeah, now this one is a modification. And at that property, there was some work going on. It's permitted. And so far they have complied with the project, but it involves a clubhouse on this property. It's one of the Montauk Historic Society Association houses, not houses, it's a clubhouse. And that part of the work still needs to be done. But the modification was approved by the planning department to approve the reconstruction of the clubhouse and the 600 square foot garage, a pool, and a pool house with a terrace and a pergola. And the planning department has approved the modification, which is to change the location of some of the building plans for the 600 foot garage and the 1,200 foot pool and pool house, terrace and pergola. But, and at this point, that reconstruction with the porches and sanitaries has not yet proceeded. But the board, it was a unanimous decision for the board to approve the modification. I make a motion to approve this for Sean McPherson at 139 DeForest Road in Montauk, tax map 300-32-6-3.
Second.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Terry. Let's see, council, we've taken, go ahead.
Kind of approve this too, for the modification?
Yes, Ed does. Ed was here for this one.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. That's right, Ed. Ed, you concur?
I concur.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was just going to say we look forward. From Nancy Lynn has been working very hard getting these done, and we appreciate it immensely. We look forward to Ed's participations in all these new decisions that he's participated in. Okay, council, we've taken care of Michael Ho already this evening. We're holding off on Mansley. Do you have anything else, council?
We don't have anything else. I'm just reminding the board, we have work session. We have 4 determinations, after hearing determinations, as well as some administrative items. And we should be, if Kyle, I think you got the agenda up this afternoon.
Let me unmute myself. Not yet, but we'll get it up tomorrow morning. I'm just waiting on some last minute things from the other guys in the office here.
All right.
So we'll have that up for you. It'll be finalized by Friday, but it'll give you a heads up as to what matters we'll be working on. And there are no hearings, so we didn't sneak any hearings in on you, so it'll just be work session.
Right. So Tyler, typically he's getting a draft up when he can, and then Friday by noon is the final, except for some possible minor issues. Correct, Nancy Lynn, that we might add on Monday or Tuesday.
Right. We're trying to save that just for emergencies. So the opportunity, especially, I know several of you board members like to go out and visit the sites, and you do an awful lot of homework on it. We're trying to avoid you having to do that at the last minute. So we are setting deadlines and hopefully getting submissions in early. So starting on Tuesday, not only yourselves, but the public will know what items you'll be working on, and that hopefully will be final by Fridays.
Thanks, Nancy Lynn. Yeah, and again, just to add that typically we're adding things like an extension of time or something very minor that gets added on the Monday or Tuesday after that Friday at noon. For that reason, thanks, Nancy Lynn. It's been great again. Now with Tyler, with Kyle on board, and with Brittany working, and Susan Buckley, we have a great team, and I appreciate it all. It's going very well. Thank you all. Anything else besides a motion to close, board members? Anything else?
Nope, just a reminder to our chair that we're getting very close to when you normally give us all the really nice Christmas gift before we start our recess.
Yeah, well, Tesla is taking too long. Tesla's not delivering that model you wanted, Tim. So might have to wait until February.
For appropriate reasons, I'm sure we're not having a Christmas party this year. So
we are encouraging Christmas sweaters at the last meeting.
ugly sweaters.
Please, Christmas sweaters.
Are there any others?
Board members. Make that a festive hearing night.
Exactly.
So that's at the 15th?
Yes, it is. Yes, December 15th. So it gives you plenty of time to go out and shop.
Yeah.
It's also my birthday. It's also my birthday.
Wow. Very extra festive.
Yeah. And I have a grandchild due that day, so it's a festive day.
There you go.
We'll be celebrating a lot.
Go ahead, Vice Chair. Get us out of here, will you, Vice Chair?
All right. Therefore, I make a motion to close the hearing and the work session for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, December 1st at 8:37 p.m.
Second. I'll concur.
I concur.
And I concur. Thank you all so much. A good meeting, as usual.
All right. Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Take care.
You too.
Thank you, everyone.